Hey, what's going on, guys? Battlestate's patch notes focus first on optimization with improvements aimed at off-rate screens, a higher FPS cap in menus, and a new setting that lets you change that cap yourself in the game options. They also made changes to the animation system and audio engine to reduce PC resource usage, and they reworked the post-raid architecture so getting out of a raid and back to the menu should be quicker. On top of that, they added an updated player culling system on Lighthouse, Shoreline, Woods, and Ground Zero, plus another round of environment and geometry optimization for Streets of Tarkov, so the exact benefit will depend a lot on your hardware and settings. And honestly, that performance side is probably the part most people are going to notice first, because Tarkov has always been the kind of game where even the menus can feel heavier than they should. This patch is clearly trying to smooth out that entire loop, from the moment you finish a raid to the moment you're ready to queue again. The faster post-raid flow is a big deal because it cuts down on that awkward waiting period that stacks up over a full play session, and the menu FPS change should make the interface feel a bit less locked down for people with stronger PCs. The player culling work is also important because it targets locations where visibility and performance can get ugly fast, especially in larger outdoor spaces and in streets, which has always been one of the toughest maps for a lot of setups. There are also some really interesting gameplay quality of life changes here. In local PvE zone raids, the game now has a task progression protection system in case the client crashes or shuts down unexpectedly. That means if the game closes suddenly, your task progress rolls back to the state it was in at the start of the raid, which is huge for avoiding weird partial progress issues after a crash. They also updated the left shoulder firing stance logic, so when you bump into an obstacle and switch to the right shoulder, it no longer snaps instantly. Instead, the weapon keeps moving for a short moment without immediately changing stance. That might sound tiny, but in Tarkov, tiny field changes can matter a ton because they affect how natural gunplay feels under pressure. They also changed the KD stat display so it now counts player kills only, which makes that number a little cleaner and less misleading than before. Now the weapon balance part is where this patch gets really spicy. This is the second stage of their weapon mod adjustments, and the focus is barrels and handguards, with muzzle devices and stocks also getting another pass. The big design idea here is that longer barrels should give better recoil control but cost more ergonomics, while handguards no longer directly reduce recoil at all, and instead help offset the ergonomics penalty that barrels bring. Suppressors and suppressors plus compensator setups were also refined, so they hit ergonomics harder and recoil less than before, which is meant to make unsuppressed builds more attractive again. In other words, they are pushing modding choices toward clearer trade-offs instead of everybody just searching for the same low recoil, best-in-slot setup. They also made minor stock tweaks and updated the base stats of a huge set of weapons, including the AK, AKM, and AK-100 family, the UG A1 and A3, the G36, HK-46A5, SCAR-L, SCAR-H, MCX Spear, MCX-300, the MCAC-47 Mutant, the RD-704, the Velociraptor, all machine guns, and all bolt-action and marksman rifles chambered in 762x51, 762x54R, .338, and 50 BMG. The overall goal is pretty obvious: better recoil and ergonomics handling, clearer mod choice, and a broader reason to run different kinds of weapons instead of just chasing one perfect meta. And then the fixes section is basically a laundry list of the kind of problems that make players sigh and say, yep, Tarkov being Tarkov. They fixed cases where dead players and bots could still look like they were moving, fixed damage not registering after a malfunction if you had previously used a stationary weapon, and fixed the infamous traitor dialogue error 228 that could block task progression. They also addressed culling, shadows, textures, and geometry issues, along with a problem where armor could not be picked up if it was dropped while interacting with the modification window. On the PvE side, they fixed PMC bot behavior toward player scavs with high fence reputation, and they fixed the labyrinth progression blocker tied to spawning in the room that requires a burner tool to exit. There are also fixes for smoke grenade visuals, Hall of Fame combat skill boosting display, post-FX preview display, the interchange secret safe room trap, bots floating while using stationary weapons, weird loot and gear behavior when dropped in raid, movement noise and stance height display, and even the third-person animation for inspecting your own inventory. So yeah, this patch is not just numbers go up, numbers go down. It is one of those cleanup updates that tries to make the game feel more stable, more readable, and less likely to sabotage you in the middle of a run.